"You're stalking the help, sir." The words slice through the silence of the marble-walled lobby like a blade finding flesh. The speaker security supervisor in a stiff gray uniform stands at attention, his voice barely above a whisper. Yet every syllable carries. It's a dangerous weight of something forbidden being said aloud. The man in the $1,000 suit doesn't flinch. Alexander Monroe, CEO of Monroe Medical Technologies, sits motionless in his leather chair, his daily throne in the opulent lobby of the Grand View Hotel. Same chair, same position. Every morning for 3 months and 2 weeks, a billionaire reduced to waiting. But waiting for what? Or whom? The answer arrives at exactly 7:43 a.m., as predictable as sunrise, yet unseen by everyone else. She emerges from the service elevator, wrapped in invisibility. Lily Hartman, the quiet housekeeper with brown curls pulled tight against her head, her uniform immaculate but worn. She moves through the lobby like a ghost afraid of haunting, pushing her cleaning cart with whispering wheels that glide over marble. Worth more per square foot than her monthly wages. Guests pass her by without a glance. Staff flow around her as though she's furniture. She's mastered the art of being present but unnoticed, a living shadow shaped by silence and necessity. Yet every morning, without fail, something impossible happens. She leaves a small porcelain cup beside Alexander Monroe's chair. Steam rises. Jasmine tea perfumes the space between them like a secret code shared only by their souls. She never looks at him. He never stops watching her. This fragile ritual has continued for weeks without a word. Until one morning, the sound that breaks it is not the clink of porcelain, but the sharp crack of authority. Lily Hartman. The voice cracks across the lobby like a whip. Miranda Cole, the hotel manager, strides forward, heels striking marble like thunder. Her immaculate red nails point accusingly toward the cup of tea, as if she's discovered a crime scene. This stops now. You're not paid to play house with the guests. Lily freezes mid-pour, trembling so violently that the jasmine tea quivers inside the kettle like liquid hope on the verge of spilling. She doesn't speak. She never does. She only nods, quick and desperate. The way someone does when silence feels safer than defense from across the room. A maintenance worker mutters cruelly. Girl probably thought she was special. Like a CEO would notice the help. The words stab deeper than they know. Lily's shoulders curve inward, shrinking as if she could fold herself out of existence. The kettle clatters softly as she sets it down, her hands shaking not from the weight, but from the humiliation of being reminded she should have never believed kindness could exist between her world and his. But what none of them see, what only? Alexander notices the way her fingers linger. For one last heartbeat on the rim of the cup, tracing it as if saying goodbye. He grips the armrest of his chair, his knuckles white, jaw tight. For the first time in 3 months and 2 weeks, his ritual has meaning again. The waiting is over. Something inside him has decided to act. For weeks afterward, the jasmine scent haunts him. He returns every morning to the same chair, the same view, but the space beside him stays empty. His colleagues whisper. His assistant has stopped asking why he insists on starting his day at the Grand View instead of his 42nd floor office. They think he's grieving, obsessed, or worse, lonely. They don't understand that what he saw in Lily Hartman wasn't infatuation but remembrance. The first morning he'd noticed her. She'd been polishing one of the marble pillars near his seat. There had been something reverent in the way she moved, as though cleaning the stone was an act of care rather than duty. It had reminded him of his grandmother, Lena, her gentle hands tending to the herb garden on their tiny fire escape when he was a boy. A Lelena, who had raised him after his parents' fatal accident when he was 12. Who taught him that kindness wasn't weakness? That gentleness could be strength. Since her death, 3 years ago, Alexander had felt untethered in a world ruled by profit margins and hollow ambition. But every morning at 7:43, when Lily stepped off that elevator, something in him remembered how goodness looked. Her small acts leaving an extra blanket for Mrs. Chen in 504, because she once mentioned getting cold at night. Folding Mr. Patterson's towels in thirds for his arthritic hands were the kind of quiet miracles no spreadsheet could quantify. She didn't know it. But she had been saving him one cup of jasmine tea at a time. Then Miranda Cole approaches him one morning, her smile too polished to hide her discomfort. "Mr. Monroe," she begins, tone brittle, "I hope you understand our position. We can't have housekeeping staff overstepping boundaries." "Which boundaries are those, Miss Cole?" Alexander's voice is calm. Well, the tea service, for instance. It's not standard. It creates inappropriate expectations. Inappropriate for whom? For everyone involved, sir. Her answer comes quickly, defensively. "We've reassigned Miss Hartman to duties more suited to her capabilities." Alexander rises slowly from his chair, his shadow cutting across the marble between them. His voice carries the quiet authority of someone who doesn't need to shout to be obeyed. "I see. And what capabilities would those be?" Miranda blinks, uncertain. She doesn't realize she's just lit a fuse under a man who has built empires by dismantling systems that harm the undeserving. The basement laundry room smells of detergent and despair. Lily's hands are raw, cracked from hours submerged in bleach water. Her fingers bleed faintly where the skin has split. Leaving crimson stains on the spotless white towels, she folds with mechanical precision. She never complains. She's learned that in her world, complaining only makes things worse. The hum of industrial washers fills the silence. Around her, other women move like ghosts in slow motion, tired, invisible, resigned. Lily folds again. She allows herself no thoughts of the marble lobby, no memory of the man in the suit, no scent of jasmine. But every night, when she returns to her small apartment, 3 subway stops away, she gives herself exactly 5 minutes to cry. 5 minutes for the ritual she's lost, for the cup she'll never pour again. The tea had been her mother's recipe, a small comfort she'd carried with her since childhood. She'd started leaving it for him the day she noticed how lonely he looked. His grief had radiated from him like heat from asphalt. Her mother had always said that sadness could be seen if you paid attention. Lily had spent her life paying attention to things others ignored. It wasn't romance. It was empathy. The purest kind, but empathy is dangerous when seen by those who profit from indifference. "You're bleeding on the linens," soft voice says. Lily looks up. Sarah Chen stands beside her sorting station, the only coworker who ever speaks kindly. Her eyes hold the weary understanding of someone who's spent years learning her place in the hierarchy of invisibility. "Sorry," Lily murmurs, pulling her hands back. "I'll be more careful." "It's not your fault, honey," Sarah replies gently. Then, lowering her voice, "Word is, you caught Miranda's attention for all the wrong reasons. Something about getting too friendly with the guests." Lily blushes hotly. "I just made tea, like my mother taught me." "We're supposed to be invisible." That word invisible lands like a blow to her ribs. It's what her ex-boyfriend Marcus used to call her when he wanted to hurt her most. You could disappear tomorrow and nobody would notice. He had taken her confidence, her voice, her belief that she mattered. By the time he left, she had learned to survive by shrinking. The hotel job had seemed perfect, an occupation built on silence and erasure. But invisibility, she's learning, comes at a price. Sometimes the world mistakes it for permission to hurt you. At the top of the basement stairs, unseen, Alexander Monroe listens. He has been searching for her for a week. And now, as her quiet confession echoes beneath the buzz of fluorescent lights, something inside him ignites. He's built an empire by recognizing patterns others overlook, and what he sees here isn't incompetence, it's injustice. That night, he doesn't sleep. His penthouse feels emptier than ever. The jasmine tea he brews for himself tastes hollow. The therapist he hasn't seen in months would probably call it projection transferring. His grief for his grandmother onto a stranger, maybe that's true. But it doesn't matter, because tomorrow, he's going to do something that will change everything. The next morning, his driver waits outside the hotel. "Should I park as usual, sir?" "Not today, James," Alexander says quietly. "We're going somewhere different." 20 minutes later, he's standing in the hotel's basement, watching Lily fold towels under the harsh white lights. She doesn't notice him at first. She moves automatically, each fold perfect, precise, almost sacred. When she finally looks up and sees him, Her eyes widen with fear. "Mr. Monroe," she stammers, voice barely audible. I'm sorry. Am I in trouble?" The question breaks something inside him. The world has trained her to associate being seen with punishment. He takes a slow step forward. "No, Lily," he says softly. "You're not in trouble." The sound of her name in his voice makes her hands freeze completely. No one ever calls her Lily, to most. It's just the quiet one, or nothing at all. "I've been looking for you," Alexander continues. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" she whispers. "For the tea. For the kindness. For reminding me there are still people who give without expecting anything in return." Her eyes fill with tears she refuses to let fall. "I didn't, T. I wasn't trying to, I know," he says gently. That's what made it beautiful. They stand in silence, separated by class, power, and years of different lives connected only by the fragile thread of recognition. It is a moment that feels impossibly small, and yet world-changing then. Then a voice breaks it, sharp, familiar. "Mr. Monroe, what are you doing down here?" Miranda Cole appears at the top of the stairs, descending like judgment incarnate. Her heels strike the concrete like a countdown to chaos. She looks between them, confusion twisting into anger. "If there's been some kind of service issue..." "I can assure you there's been no service issue," Alexander interrupts, his tone cool as winter steel. Quite the opposite. Lily stands frozen beside her folding table, clutching a towel like it might protect her. The conversation unfolds above her, about her but not to her. Always that way. Until now, Miranda stiffens. Miss Hartman was reassigned for very specific reasons. "Which were?" Alexander asks, voice soft but dangerous. She was. Overstepping boundaries, creating inappropriate expectations. By bringing you tea, by acting outside her assigned duties. Alexander takes a step closer until his height forces Miranda to look up. "Tell me, Miss Cole, in your professional opinion, what should happen to an employee who notices that a guest prefers jasmine tea and takes the initiative to provide it?" "Sir, because, in my opinion," he continues, coldly, "that employees should be recognized for exceptional service, promoted even. Not banished to the basement for the crime of being kind." Silence floods the room. The hum of machinery becomes thunder in the background. Lily stares, wide-eyed, unable to process that someone is defending her. Miranda's face flushes. "With all due respect, sir, there are protocols. There are also human beings," Alexander cuts in. "And this one has shown more professionalism in 3 months than your management team has in 3 years. He turns to Lily, and when he speaks again, his voice softens. "Lily, would you be willing to have lunch with me? There's something I'd like to discuss, a position that might interest you." The towel slips from her hand. I'm not sure that's appropriate. It's a business meeting," he clarifies gently. "And it concerns an opportunity I think you'll want to hear about." Two worlds collide in that moment. The quiet girl who thought she was invisible, and the billionaire who finally saw her. The future is already shifting, quietly. Irrevocably, what neither of them knows yet is that this single act of recognition will ignite a revolution. The restaurant is empty when Lily arrives, too empty for comfort. It's not a place where someone like her belongs. Glass chandeliers drip light like frozen raindrops. The tables are dressed in white linen, so crisp it looks dangerous to touch. Every sound, every breath seems to echo in the expensive quiet. She hesitates near the entrance, clutching the strap of her bag like a lifeline. The hostess eyes her uniform with barely disguised doubt until Alexander Monroe stands from his table and gestures toward her with a small, reassuring nod. "Lily," he says softly, as if her name itself is something fragile. "I'm glad you came." She moves slowly toward him, careful not to let her shoes squeak against the marble. "I almost didn't," she admits. "People already talk." "Let them," he replies simply. "The world will always talk about what it can't understand." He motions to the seat across from him. She sits, folding her hands neatly in her lap, eyes darting between the glistening silverware and the heavy menu that feels more like a legal document than a list of food. He orders jasmine tea without asking. When the cup arrives, she stares at the steam for a long moment before whispering, You remembered. I remember everything that matters, he says. Silence fills the space between them again. But it's different this time. Not oppressive, but alive. Like something waiting to be named. Like something waiting to be named. Finally, he leans forward. I've been thinking about what happened, he begins. About you. About the hotel. About how many people like you live unseen by the very system they keep alive. She frowns slightly, unsure how to respond. I want to change that, he continues. At my company, we've always valued innovation. But what if we innovated compassion instead? What if kindness was part of the corporate structure, not an accident? Her brow furrows. I don't understand. He smiles faintly. I'm offering you a job, Lily, a real one. I want you to help me design a new employee welfare program, something built from the perspective of someone who knows what it means to be invisible. She blinks, lost between disbelief and fear. I'm not ... qualified. Qualification, he says quietly, is often just privilege in disguise. You have empathy. You see what others ignore. That's more valuable than any MBA. Tears threaten to spill down her cheeks, but she bites them back. Why me? He hesitates, searching for the right words. Because you reminded me that humanity still exists. And I can't ignore that anymore. 2 weeks later, the transformation begins. Lily Hartman walks into Monroe Medical Technologies. Not through the service door, but through the main entrance. The lobby is an ocean of glass and chrome, reflecting 100 faces that suddenly turn toward her. She wears a modest cream blouse and simple black trousers, her hair neatly tied back. A staff ID hangs from her neck. Lily Hartman, Human Empathy Consultant. The title sounds almost absurd, like a joke whispered behind boardroom doors. But Alexander stands beside her, introducing her to department heads with the same gravity he would a new executive. This is Ms. Hartman, he says. She's here to help us see what we've forgotten to notice. Most nod politely, masking confusion behind corporate smiles. A few smirk openly. But a handful those who still remember what it felt like to struggle watch her with quiet admiration. They know what this means. That someone from below has been seen. And Lily. She feels the weight of every eye, every whisper, every unspoken question pressing against her ribs. But she walks forward anyway. Because she's no longer just a housekeeper. She's the beginning of something much bigger. For months, she works quietly interviewing janitors, receptionists, cafeteria staff. She listens, really listens, to their stories. The single mother who hides her lunch in a paper towel so no one sees she can't afford food. The night guard who sleeps in his car because the bus route doesn't run late enough to take him home. The cleaning crew that works unpaid overtime because they fear replacement. Lily writes it all down. Every name. Every pain. Every small victory. And slowly, a blueprint forms one that could rebuild an empire on the foundation of dignity. Alexander reads her reports late at night, long after the office has emptied. Her words are simple, but sharp as glass. We don't want charity. We want to be treated like we matter. Invisible hold up the visible. Maybe the real work is learning to see. He realizes that in all his years building companies, he has never built a community. The discovery both shames and inspires him. Then comes the day of the quarterly shareholders' meeting. A cavernous auditorium, hundreds of suited men and women, seated beneath the cold glow of stage lights. Reporters line the walls. Cameras flash like lightning. Alexander steps onto the stage, his speech ready in his hand, but he doesn't read it. Instead, he looks toward the side door where Lily waits nervously in a plain navy dress. He gives her a subtle nod. When he begins to speak, his voice carries the calm power of someone who no longer fears truth. Ladies and gentlemen, he says, our company has been built on innovation, on curing diseases, on saving lives. But there's one illness we've ignored for too long, an infection of indifference. And it's killing the humanity in our workplaces. Murmurs ripple through the audience. He continues. Behind every success story, there are people whose names we never learn, whose hands clean the floors we walk on, whose labor keeps us alive. People like Lily Hartman. Spotlight swings toward her. She flinches under its glare, but steps forward anyway. The room falls silent as she takes the stage beside him. This woman, Alexander says, was punished for kindness. For doing something the rest of us forgot how to do, noticing another human being. She reminded me that wealth without compassion is just another form of poverty. He turns to her. Lily, would you share what you've written? Her hands tremble as she takes the microphone. For a long moment she can't speak. The faces before her blur into a sea of judgment. But then she remembers Sarah Chen's tired smile. The sting of bleach on her hands, the trembling porcelain cup that once symbolized courage. And something inside her steadies. I'm not used to speaking, she begins softly. I'm used to being quiet, because quiet people survive longer. But maybe surviving isn't enough anymore. A hush falls over the auditorium. When you spend your life cleaning other people's footprints, she says, her voice growing stronger, you learn how much they forget where they've walked. You see what they step on, what they ignore, what they destroy without noticing. And maybe that's what kindness is, remembering to look down. It's to see the ground beneath your feet before you crush someone's hope. She pauses. A single tear rolls down her cheek, but her voice doesn't waver. I used to think I was invisible, but I think now maybe invisible people are just waiting for the world to open its eyes. The silence that follows is absolute. Then, slowly, the applause begins. Not polite, not rehearsed, but real. It grows until the sound fills the hall like thunder. Even the reporters stop taking notes in that moment. The invisible girl becomes the mirror through which the powerful finally see themselves. A month later, Monroe Medical launches the Hartman Initiative, company-wide reform designed to ensure fair treatment, wages and mental health support for all service employees. Other corporations follow. What begins as a small policy turns into a movement that spreads across industries. Lily's face appears in magazines, newspapers, even documentaries. But fame never sits comfortably on her shoulders. She still lives in her modest apartment. She still takes the subway. She still carries the same thermos of jasmine tea every morning. When asked why she never upgraded her life, she simply says, I already did. I stopped apologizing for existing. One evening, she returns to the Grandview Hotel. The same marble floors, the same echo of heels against stone. But everything feels different now. Miranda Cole is no longer manager. Her dismissal was quiet, but inevitable. The new staff greet Lily with shy respect, some even gratitude. They've heard the story. She pauses near the chair where Alexander used to sit every morning. The spot where it all began? A housekeeping cart stands nearby, the kettle steaming gently. A young cleaner, barely 18, pours a cup and glances nervously in her direction. Ma'am, would you like some tea? Lily smiles softly. What kind? Jasmine, the girl says. My mother taught me it helps people feel seen. Lily's heart stutters, then steadies. Then yes, she whispers. I'd love some. She takes the cup in both hands, savoring the warmth, the scent, the memory of beginnings. Outside, the city hums the sound of countless unseen lives unfolding. Later that night, she finds herself once again across from Alexander, this time on a rooftop garden, overlooking the skyline. He's older in the eyes now, but lighter in spirit, you know, he says. Watching the city lights flicker below, they call you the invisible girl who changed everything. She laughs quietly. I didn't change anything. I just made people look. He smiles. That's all any revolution ever does. They stand in silence for a while, the wind cool against their faces. Then she speaks again. Do you ever think about your grandmother? Every day, he says, but not with sadness anymore. You replace the grief with purpose. He nods. Then maybe that's what kindness really is. A way of keeping the dead alive in how we treat the living. He looks at her, the faintest smile touching his lips. You should put that on our company's wall. Only if you promise to remember where it came from, she replies. I couldn't forget if I tried. The city below glitters like a field of stars. Somewhere, in 1,000 small ways, people are being seen because one girl refused to stay invisible. Epilogue years later, a marble plaque is placed in the lobby of Monroe Medical Headquarters. It reads, To Lily Hartman, who taught us that the smallest act of kindness can start the loudest revolution. And beneath it, etched in faint gold, be the reason someone is no longer invisible. Every morning, employees stop to read it before they clock in. Some bring tea to one another's desks. Others simply smile at the janitor, the guard, the intern. Small things. Quiet things.